Prologue. Nathan, age 26, and his 4 brothers, Mason, Drake, Elijah, and 16-year-old Maddox, gather with their father, Dalton James, on New Year's Eve. Their mother has recently passed, leaving the house unusually quiet and somber. Dalton pours 6 glasses of 50-year-old Macallan, which the brothers accept with varying degrees of composure. They reflect on family traditions, including watching the ball drop and using great-granddad's old Navy diving watch to mark midnight, which Maddox retrieves from his pocket. Mason struggles with the emptiness of the house, suggesting they leave for a lively location, but their father forbids it. Dalton stands before them, a formidable yet visibly defeated man respected by his sons for his business acumen and authority. In a rare moment of vulnerability, he addresses his grief and offers his final piece of advice to his sons: never fall in love, implying a belief that love brings inevitable heartache. In Chapter 1, Nathan, age 38, argues with his father, Dalton James, over a paparazzi magazine spread showing him with a socialite late at night. Dalton reprimands Nathan for publicly flaunting the family name, stressing his responsibility as the heir of the James legacy. Nathan defends his lifestyle, pointing out that he and his brother Drake have successfully built the largest law firm in the country, generating immense wealth for the family. Dalton acknowledges Nathan's accomplishments, but insists that he is the only son capable of continuing the family line because his other sons, Elijah, Maddox, Mason, and Drake, are either unable or unwilling to have children. He demands that Nathan marry a suitable woman and have at least 2 children to preserve the James legacy. Nathan protests, feeling pressured, but ultimately concedes that he wants a family one day. Dalton assures him he has a plan to help him find the right partner. In Chapter 2, Melanie attends her weekly Sunday tea with her mother, where she is summoned to hear good news from her older brother Bryce. Bryce admits he has solved the family's financial crisis, which he caused by mismanaging their trust fund. Despite Melanie insisting she is content with her job as a veterinary nurse and living with her cousin Tyler, Bryce announces he has arranged a marriage for her. He reveals she is expected to marry billionaire lawyer Nathan James. Melanie refuses, but Bryce becomes threatening, physically hurting her under the table while their mother looks away. He claims the marriage will secure the family's future and insists Nathan has agreed on the condition Melanie produces 2 heirs. Bryce manipulates Melanie by blaming her for their father's death and threatening their mother's home and their younger sister Ashley's education. Cornered and desperate to protect Ashley, Melanie agrees to consider the arrangement. Bryce informs her a meeting with lawyers is scheduled for Thursday. In Chapter 3, Melanie confides in her cousin and best friend Tyler about Bryce's plan to force her into marriage. She explains that Bryce expects her to marry Nathan James, a wealthy and notorious New York lawyer, and have children to secure the family's future. Melanie expresses disbelief that Nathan would agree, describing him as a confirmed playboy with a dangerous reputation. Tyler reacts with humor and curiosity, immediately looking Nathan up online and confirming that he is extremely attractive. Despite the jokes, Melanie remains uneasy, questioning Nathan's motives and suspecting he must have his own agenda. Tyler reassures Melanie, emphasizing her worth and reminding her that she is intelligent, kind, and beautiful, and not inferior to the women Nathan is usually seen with. The chapter reinforces Melanie's fear and confusion about the arranged marriage while establishing Tyler as her emotional support and confidant. In Chapter 4, Nathan discusses his father's demand with his brothers, Elijah and Mason, over drinks. Their father expects Nathan to marry Melanie Edison and produce grandchildren to continue the family legacy. Nathan reveals that a meeting with her family lawyers is already scheduled for Thursday. Elijah and Mason react with shock at the arrangement and question Nathan about Melanie. He explains she is Luke Edison's daughter, a veterinary nurse, and has a modest lifestyle, living with her cousin Tyler. Melanie's family company is failing, and while Nathan's father won't invest, the marriage would lend credibility to their business for potential investors. Nathan researched Melanie, noting she has a college degree, a 20-year-old sister at Harvard, and an interest in animals. Though skeptical about her motivations, Nathan decides to attend the meeting with Melanie in person, inviting his brother Drake for support. The chapter establishes Nathan's reluctant involvement and Melanie's background while setting up the upcoming meeting. In Chapter 5, Melanie is confronted by her brother Bryce after work. He forces her into his car, initially pretending to apologize for past behavior, but quickly reveals his true purpose: to pressure her into marrying Nathan James and having children to secure the family's future. Bryce presents the marriage as a financial strategy, claiming that a morality clause in Nathan's prenup would protect Melanie and the family's reputation, and he even suggests orchestrating Nathan to cheat to guarantee evidence. Melanie objects, citing Nathan's intelligence and loyalty, and refuses to participate in such manipulation. Bryce insists the plan benefits their mother and younger sister Ashley, implying Melanie must act for their sake. Despite her disgust, Melanie reluctantly agrees to attend the upcoming meeting with Nathan and his family to hear more about the arrangement. The chapter establishes Melanie's coerced involvement in the arranged marriage plot and Bryce's manipulative, controlling nature. In Chapter 6, Nathan ends another unsatisfying date, realizing that casual sex no longer fulfills him. He reflects on his growing boredom with dating and acknowledges that recent encounters have left him emotionally disengaged. Nathan meets with his brother Drake in his office before a scheduled meeting with Melanie Edison and her family. He admits he is seriously considering his father's proposal to marry Melanie and have children, not out of love, but as a practical arrangement that aligns with his desire for family without emotional entanglement. Drake questions his motives, but ultimately supports him. Nathan explains that he wants children with a woman he can trust and respect and believes he can judge compatibility quickly. They proceed to the boardroom, where Melanie arrives with her brother Bryce and their lawyer. When Nathan meets Melanie in person, he is immediately struck by her presence and attraction, sensing tension and awareness between them, just as Bryce abruptly asserts control over her. In Chapter 7, Melanie endures a chaotic boardroom meeting where her brother Bryce and the family lawyer dominate with legal jargon. Nathan James asserts control, demanding privacy, and with Drake's support, Bryce and the lawyer leave, leaving Nathan and Melanie alone. Nathan questions why Melanie agreed to the marriage arrangement. She responds that it's for her family's welfare. Nathan challenges her motives, noting he's aware of her family's financial struggles. Melanie admits she wants stability and to support her sister's education. Nathan explains he is considering the marriage for family respectability and heirs, and stresses that the arrangement must be amicable to avoid a toxic household. He offers Melanie a choice to back out, which she accepts. She clarifies she intends to continue her job as a veterinary nurse and requests a 6-month delay before trying for a child. Nathan agrees, noting the waiting period will prevent speculation. They plan to finalize contract details over dinner with staged public appearances before announcing their engagement. In Chapter 8, Nathan waits outside Melanie's apartment for their dinner date, watching her arrive on time. Melanie wears an elegant jade green dress that highlights her curves and immediately flirts with Nathan, showing confidence and playfulness. During the ride, they discuss her past. She clarifies that her rehab stint was exaggerated, drinks socially, and does not use drugs. Nathan reassures her that he cares only about the present. They share light banter and first date nerves, revealing mutual attraction. Melanie teases about her nervousness and expresses her preference for Iceman and Top Gun, showing she knows Nathan's nickname. Nathan notices her charm, playfulness, and flirtation, which make her different from the woman he first met in his office. He offers her champagne to calm her nerves, and she accepts, signaling comfort and willingness to engage. Their chemistry grows during the ride, setting the stage for their first official date and deepening their personal connection. In Chapter 9, Melanie goes on her first public date with Nathan, discovering he is charming, attentive, and far more engaging than she expected. Dinner is relaxed and enjoyable, with most of the evening spent getting to know each other rather than discussing the marriage contract. Afterward, Melanie suggests walking, and Nathan agrees, giving her his jacket when she gets cold. During the walk, they flirt openly, test each other's humor, and acknowledge growing chemistry. Nathan smiles genuinely for the first time, and Melanie realizes she is enjoying herself more than she should. When they reach her apartment, Nathan suggests coffee and then a kiss to make the date look real, but Melanie refuses, reminding herself this is a business arrangement and wanting to keep emotional distance. She kisses his cheek instead. Nathan respects her boundary, lets her keep his jacket, and confidently schedules their next date for Saturday night, signaling his continued interest. In Chapter 10, Nathan reflects on his intense attraction to Melanie after their first date, frustrated that he is left wanting more intimacy despite the evening being limited to conversation and dinner. He contacts his brother Elijah to meet at a bar and discuss the date, sharing that Melanie was flirty, fun, and different from her reserved boardroom demeanor. Nathan admits he is both frustrated and intrigued by her personality and chemistry. He observes her behavior with her brother and notes subtle differences, wondering about their dynamic. Elijah teases Nathan about his desire for sex, but validates that it's positive he is attracted to his future wife. They discuss the challenges of marrying without love and the complications that attraction brings to Nathan's arranged marriage. Nathan also briefly considers his brother's troubled relationship with Amber, which reinforces his perspective on marriage without romantic expectation. Overall, the chapter highlights Nathan's growing interest in Melanie and the complexities of their arranged union. In Chapter 11, Nathan and Melanie continue their first date at the Central Park Zoo after dinner. Nathan observes Melanie's appearance and behavior, noting her attractiveness, confidence, and wit. They share a private, playful walk through the zoo, during which Nathan drapes his jacket over Melanie to keep her warm. They discuss their past dating experiences, exchanging humorous and awkward stories, which helps them bond and shows compatibility in humor and personality. Nathan evaluates Melanie's demeanor and responses, noticing her flirtatious and clever nature, while Melanie assesses Nathan's character, trying to determine his intentions and compatibility. They explore each other's boundaries and comfort levels, discussing what they want in the arrangement and hinting at future expectations. A zookeeper gifts Melanie a stuffed red panda, marking the visit. The chapter ends with both feeling a growing attraction and a sense of mutual respect, deepening the connection between them beyond the business-oriented engagement. In Chapter 12, Melanie turns down Nathan's 4th of July plans because she is working a night shift at the animal shelter. Nathan abruptly ends their call, leaving her disappointed. Later that evening, Nathan arrives at the shelter with a picnic dinner for Melanie and food and treats for the animals, choosing to spend the holiday with her privately instead of attending a public event. They share dinner together, talk comfortably, and bond over Melanie's work and her care for long-term shelter dogs, Caesar and Potato. Nathan shows genuine kindness and respect for her values, deepening Melanie's feelings for him. He reveals he canceled extravagant yacht plans to be there. When the security guard signals it's time for Nathan to leave, Melanie admits she wishes he could stay. Before leaving, Nathan asks her out for the following Friday, explaining he will be away on business. Melanie agrees, realizing she is becoming emotionally invested despite the arrangement. In Chapter 13, Nathan insists on choosing Melanie's outfit for their date, framing it as a gift for a special occasion. At the restaurant, Melanie arrives wearing the red dress Nathan selected, attracting attention and confirming their growing physical attraction and subtle possessiveness. During dinner, Nathan reveals the evening's purpose. He plans to propose publicly to solidify the engagement. Melanie expresses mild disappointment at the cliché but agrees, reminding herself this is a business arrangement. Nathan proposes in the crowded restaurant with a 4-carat diamond ring, and Melanie accepts enthusiastically. They kiss for appearances, but the kiss quickly becomes intense and real, surprising Nathan with how strongly he reacts. The restaurant celebrates their engagement, ensuring public visibility and media attention. Despite achieving his strategic goal, Nathan feels conflicted, wishing the moment were private and more genuine. By the end of the chapter, their engagement is official, public, and emotionally more complicated than either expected. In Chapter 14, Melanie and Nathan leave the restaurant after their public engagement, posing for photographers to reinforce the image of a happy couple. Once in the car, Melanie reflects on the whirlwind proposal while Nathan confirms he planned the surprise intentionally. They agree to drop formalities now that they are officially engaged, revealing growing flirtation and mutual attraction. Nathan walks Melanie to her apartment, explaining that, as her fiancée, their relationship should progress, though he clarifies he does not expect to be invited inside. Melanie internally resolves to avoid sex or emotional attachment before the wedding, fearing heartbreak. At her door, Nathan states he will kiss her but not cross further boundaries. Their kiss escalates into intense physical desire, underscoring the depth of their chemistry, before Nathan deliberately pulls away and leaves. Alone, Melanie acknowledges that despite her resolve, she is already emotionally vulnerable and believes Nathan James will eventually break her heart. In Chapter 15, Melanie learns that her engagement to Nathan has become public news, splashed across magazines and gossip sites. Bryce is pleased, believing the publicity will protect their interests when the marriage eventually ends. He insists Nathan will cheat and argues that a morality clause will allow them to benefit financially. Melanie defends Nathan, stating he has shown no signs of infidelity and may never cheat. Bryce dismisses her view and reveals plans to deliberately tempt Nathan with a honey trap to force a scandal. Melanie refuses to marry Nathan with the intention of divorcing him and explains that the marriage is meant to secure their family's future and allow her to raise children in stability. Bryce reacts violently, reminding her she has no control over her choices. He threatens her and Ashley, blaming Melanie for their father's death and forcing her compliance. Melanie submits, agreeing to follow his demands despite her fear. In Chapter 16, Nathan meets with his brother Elijah, who is unhappy in his marriage but refuses to divorce. Nathan sets his wedding to Melanie for the 3rd of the next month, treating it as a formality rather than a meaningful event. Melanie arrives at Nathan's office, meets Elijah, and immediately makes a strong positive impression on him. After Elijah leaves, Nathan and Melanie review the prenuptial agreement. Melanie shows little concern for the legal details, focusing instead on their plan to have children and make the marriage work. Nathan explains the protections, including custody terms and a morality clause that penalizes infidelity, and both sign the contract. They go out for pizza, where their chemistry and ease with each other deepen. Nathan outlines the simple wedding plans and quick timeline, emphasizing practicality over sentiment. Melanie expresses disappointment that important family members may not attend, but ultimately agrees to proceed. In Chapter 17, Melanie prepares for her wedding with her sister Ashley, who believes the marriage is a love match. Melanie hides the contractual nature of the marriage to protect Ashley and their family's future. Ashley reassures Melanie that she has a choice and asks if she loves Nathan, and Melanie confirms she wants to go through with the marriage. Dalton James comforts Melanie before the ceremony, honors her late father, and escorts her to Nathan, preventing Bryce from doing so. Melanie reflects on wishing the marriage were real, but commits to the plan, believing Nathan is a good man and they can build a stable life together. After the ceremony, Nathan thanks Melanie for how she handled the day and reiterates his intention to make the marriage work. He asserts possessiveness and reminds her of their 6-month agreement. Melanie accepts their new role as a married couple while remaining emotionally conflicted. In Chapter 18, Nathan notices Melanie growing uncomfortable when Bryce approaches her at the wedding reception and decides to take her home. He publicly asserts his role as her husband, pulling her away from her brother and ensuring Mason looks after Ashley. Melanie is clearly intoxicated, affectionate, and trusting with Nathan during the car ride. Realizing she is too drunk to consent, Nathan carries her to the penthouse and puts her to bed in her own room rather than his. Despite Melanie wanting to consummate the marriage, Nathan refuses, prioritizing her safety and dignity over his desire. He allows a brief kiss, but stops before it escalates. Nathan stays with her until she falls asleep, then leaves to sleep alone, deliberately resisting temptation. He reflects on Melanie's trust, recognizing it matters more to him than sex, and acknowledges his growing emotional attachment as he chooses restraint on their wedding night. In Chapter 19, Melanie learns the morning after the wedding that Nathan is leaving to work on a legal case, reinforcing that his job takes priority over their marriage. He provides practical help for her hangover and suggests they have dinner later, which raises Melanie's hopes. She spends the day alone in the penthouse waiting for him, growing increasingly insecure and questioning the reality of their arrangement. Nathan does not return or contact her until close to midnight, when he finds her asleep on the couch. Melanie confronts him about missing dinner and being absent the day after their wedding. Nathan responds harshly, reminding her that his work comes first and that their relationship does not supersede it. The argument escalates into anger and physical proximity before Nathan restrains himself. Melanie pulls away, emotionally hurt, and retreats to bed, realizing the distance and imbalance in their marriage are already causing conflict. In Chapter 20, Nathan reflects on how poorly he treated Melanie the previous night and resolves to make amends. He finds her asleep on their wedding day morning and apologizes for missing dinner and failing to communicate his late return from work. He explains that his job often consumes him, but reassures her he will try to do better. Melanie asks to understand his day, and Nathan shares the story of a difficult case that led him to switch from corporate to criminal law, specifically the sexual assault and subsequent suicide of a young girl, Yasmin, and the vigilante actions of her father. He explains that he now takes cases to help those without resources, balancing pro bono and paying clients, and stresses that justice and the law are not always the same. Melanie supports him, recognizing he is doing the right thing. They reconcile emotionally, and Nathan watches her sleep, feeling closer to her than ever. In Chapter 21, 2 weeks after their wedding, Melanie and Nathan have settled into a routine. Nathan drives her to and from work, and sexual tension simmers between them, though they both maintain restraint. One evening, Melanie arrives home to find Nathan shirtless and cooking dinner, preparing paprika chicken and patatas bravas from his mother's recipe. They share conversation about their childhoods, Melanie's protective role over her sister Ashley after their father's death, and Nathan's upbringing with his 4 brothers and the loss of his mother. The evening is intimate, filled with flirtation and rising desire, but they continue to respect boundaries. As Nathan's focus intensifies on Melanie, he receives an urgent work call, requiring him to leave immediately for a few days. Despite the attraction and tension between them, Melanie steps back and Nathan departs, leaving her alone in the penthouse, aware of her growing feelings and the challenges of balancing their personal connection with his demanding career. In Chapter 22, Nathan returns home early after a 3-day trip, eager to be with Melanie. Hearing what sounds like sexual activity, he rushes to the den furious, only to discover Melanie's cousin Tyler massaging her leg for a cramp. After a tense confrontation and explanation from Melanie, Nathan realizes the situation was innocent, though it triggers his jealousy. Tyler leaves, joking about the unresolved tension, and Nathan and Melanie remain alone. They discuss the misunderstanding, and Nathan acknowledges his attraction and desire for her. Melanie teases him about jealousy and reiterates that she is not a cheater. The sexual tension between them escalates, and Nathan offers to give her an orgasm immediately, with no expectations or strings attached. Melanie accepts, signaling their mutual desire and willingness to cross physical boundaries, marking a shift from restrained sexual tension to an explicit step in their physical intimacy. In Chapter 23, Nathan initiates sexual intimacy with Melanie in their penthouse, taking control to give her an intense, prolonged orgasm. He asks her preferences, lifts her onto the kitchen island, and uses his mouth and fingers to pleasure her, carefully prolonging the experience and building anticipation. Melanie is initially embarrassed and self-conscious, but surrenders to the moment. Nathan praises her and maintains physical control, preventing her from climaxing too soon, extending the sexual tension. He repeatedly stimulates her, bringing her to multiple waves of ecstasy, culminating in a powerful euphoric release that leaves her physically and emotionally spent. Afterward, he briefly connects with her on a deeper emotional level through eye contact, indicating intimacy and trust, before breaking the moment, wiping himself, leaving her on the countertop, and exiting the room. This chapter marks the first consummation of their sexual relationship, establishing a new level of physical and emotional intimacy between them. In Chapter 24, Nathan reflects on leaving Melanie immediately after their sexual encounter on the kitchen counter the previous night. He is frustrated with himself for running off, still aroused and consumed by thoughts of her. Melanie confronts him about feeling used and cheap when he left, prompting him to explain that he withdrew to honor their agreement of 1 orgasm with no expectations and to avoid having unprotected sex. Nathan reassures her that his intention was not to hurt her, and that he wanted to respect her choice to wait to start trying for a baby. Melanie admits she is on the pill, and they acknowledge their lack of communication. They agree to be honest about their desires going forward. Physical tension remains high, and Nathan closes the distance to her, apologizing for making her feel cheap and expressing his desire. He leaves abruptly for an urgent meeting, leaving Melanie alone, though both are aware of their unresolved sexual and emotional tension. In Chapter 25, Melanie and Nathan engage in their first full sexual encounter since their wedding. After a brief discussion about preferences, Melanie consents and expresses a desire for him to take control. Nathan lifts her onto the kitchen island, removes her robe, and begins stimulating her with his fingers and mouth, bringing her to intense arousal. Melanie responds eagerly, moaning and arching into him. Nathan maintains dominance, teasing and prolonging her pleasure while praising her and guiding her reactions. Once she signals readiness, he penetrates her, continuing with a raw, primal intensity on the countertop. They move together, Nathan asserting control while Melanie surrenders, experiencing multiple waves of pleasure and orgasms. During the encounter, Nathan emphasizes her responsiveness and their mutual desire, reinforcing the physical and emotional connection between them. By the end, Melanie reaches a climactic release and, emotionally and physically satisfied, realizes she wants to commit to Nathan as her husband permanently, marking a turning point in their intimacy and relationship. In chapter 26, Nathan wakes up with Melanie curled against him, enjoying the intimacy of their morning together. They discuss how waking up together feels different from just sex, acknowledging the emotional connection forming between them. Nathan encourages her to stay in their shared space rather than retreat to her room, reinforcing their new life as husband and wife. Melanie expresses hesitation, worried the closeness feels unreal, but Nathan reassures her that their bond is genuine. They engage in morning sex, with Nathan entering her and pleasuring her again, further solidifying their physical and emotional intimacy. Melanie responds enthusiastically, climaxing under his touch, and they revel in their mutual satisfaction. They share playful, teasing moments afterward, acknowledging the intensity of their connection and the pleasure they can bring each other. By the chapter's end, both recognize their growing dependency and desire, affirming their commitment to each other as husband and wife. In chapter 27, Melanie meets her mother and Bryce for tea to confront them without Nathan present. She tells them her marriage is working and firmly opposes Bryce's plan to use a honey trap to force Nathan to cheat. Melanie insists Nathan is loyal and demands Bryce abandon the scheme. Bryce mocks her, arguing the plan would prove her wrong and still benefit the family. Melanie refuses, admitting she loves Nathan and believes he may eventually love her too. Bryce reacts with cruelty, verbally attacking her worth and past pregnancies. Melanie threatens to tell Nathan about the scheme unless Bryce promises to stop. With their mother's approval, Bryce reluctantly agrees, but warns her not to return when the marriage fails. Melanie leaves determined not to come back. Outside, Teddy is waiting on Nathan's instructions. Emotionally shaken, Melanie accepts his comfort and asks him to take her home, choosing distance from her family and loyalty to her husband. In chapter 28, Nathan learns from his driver that Melanie left her mother's house visibly upset and immediately has her brought to him at his father's home. He senses her distress is connected to her brother. Nathan welcomes her into his family's home, prioritizing her comfort and staying the night there. While bathing together, Melanie confirms her brother was cruel again, but initially avoids details. Nathan gently presses, showing concern and protectiveness. Later, after intimacy and a family dinner Melanie enjoys, Nathan asks again about her brother. Melanie finally reveals that after her father's death, Bryce blamed her for it, convincing her it was her fault because her father stayed home with her instead of going to the beach. She explains Bryce has used this guilt to control and hurt her for years. Nathan reassures her that the blame is unjustified and recognizes Bryce's manipulation. Melanie decides to distance herself from her family and prefers spending time with Nathan's, deepening their emotional bond and trust. In chapter 29, Nathan meets with Shane Ryan, a powerful nightclub owner and longtime client, to discreetly request help with a sensitive matter. Nathan asks Shane to connect him with Shane's wife Jessie, an elite hacker, to investigate a murder from 17 years earlier. Nathan reveals the victim was Melanie's father and insists the inquiry remain confidential. Shane agrees, trusting Nathan enough to let him deal directly with Jessie, though he notes Nathan has relied on her services frequently. Nathan plans to make a charitable donation instead of payment. During their conversation, Shane remarks on Nathan's unexpected marriage and suggests that love can change a man. Nathan admits his wife is extraordinary. Shane observes that men like them often do not realize they are broken until someone brings them peace, implying Melanie may be that person for Nathan. The chapter establishes Nathan's intent to uncover the truth about Melanie's father's death and highlights his deepening emotional investment in his marriage. In chapter 30, Melanie and Nathan share a playful, intimate morning in their penthouse, highlighting how comfortable and connected they have become. Nathan returns home early, teasing Melanie for eating cereal and quickly turning the moment sexual. Their easy banter shows their relationship has settled into a passionate routine. Nathan mentions they have an upcoming obligation, a formal investor dinner for his father's company, marking Melanie's first major public appearance at his side since the wedding. Melanie agrees to attend and allows Nathan to choose her dress, acknowledging that their private cocoon is beginning to open to Nathan's public world. The chapter ends with Nathan pulling Melanie away to the bedroom, reinforcing their strong physical bond and signaling that their marriage is now fully lived both privately and publicly. In chapter 31, Melanie attends a formal investor event with Nathan, where he openly praises her and presents her as his wife. While he steps away with his father, Melanie socializes, but grows uneasy when she later finds Nathan being flirted with by a bold woman named Deandra. Feeling dismissed when Nathan does not immediately shut the woman down, Melanie confronts him and walks away, triggering an argument. Nathan pulls her into a private hallway where they argue about jealousy, boundaries, and his past. He clarifies that he has never paid for sex and asserts his possessive desire for her. The confrontation turns intensely physical, and Nathan pleasures Melanie discreetly in the hallway until she climaxes, reinforcing his control and exclusivity. Afterward, their tension eases. Nathan checks if she is still angry, she admits she is not, and they return to the event together, their relationship marked by heightened passion, jealousy, and possessiveness. In Chapter 32, Nathan and Melanie leave the investor event together and ride home in the car. Overcome by desire, Nathan pulls Melanie onto his lap and they have sex in the back seat, unable to wait until they reach home. Their intimacy is intense and mutual, reinforcing how deeply physically connected they have become. During the encounter, Nathan openly admits how strongly Melanie affects him, confessing that he is constantly thinking about her and feels obsessed with her. Melanie responds positively, embracing his possessiveness and acknowledging the emotional and physical bond they share. They climax together, and Nathan finishes inside her, emphasizing his desire to claim her and his growing attachment. Afterward, Melanie expresses how incredible the experience was, and Nathan admits his fixation without reservation. The chapter closes with them holding each other closely for the remainder of the drive, highlighting the escalating intensity of their relationship and the shift from arrangement to deeply consuming passion. In Chapter 33, Melanie and Nathan go out to dinner together on a rare Saturday night after his meetings end early. At the restaurant, Melanie runs into a drunken college acquaintance, Craig, who hugs her too closely. Nathan intervenes aggressively, forcing Craig to leave, which sparks an argument between Nathan and Melanie about jealousy and double standards. Nathan admits he is possessive and furious at anyone touching her. He has the restaurant cleared, insisting they be alone, escalating the conflict into a charged power struggle. Nathan orders Melanie to strip, asserting control, and edges her deliberately as punishment for her attitude. Despite her defiance, Melanie complies, trusting him. Nathan spanks her, pleasures her, and pushes boundaries while keeping control, ultimately making her climax while fully clothed himself. He stops before taking his own release, reinforcing dominance and restraint. The chapter ends with heightened tension, unresolved anger, and a clear shift toward deeper obsession, control, and emotional intensity between them. In Chapter 34, Nathan and Melanie return to their penthouse, both consumed with desire after their restaurant encounter. Nathan immediately claims her, pressing her against the wall, lifting her, and taking her into his arms as they passionately kiss. Melanie unbuckles his pants and wraps her fingers around his shaft, leading to Nathan penetrating her. He drives her against the wall, punishing and pleasurable thrusts bringing her to orgasm. Later, on the bed, Nathan introduces anal play, carefully lubing and fingering her before preparing to penetrate. Melanie consents, and he slowly enters her, providing guidance and reassurance as she adjusts. He simultaneously stimulates her clit, heightening her pleasure. Both climax together, Melanie riding the high while Nathan releases inside her. Afterward, they lie together, exhausted but content, discussing the intensity and savoring the moment. Nathan expresses that she holds all his firsts in life, reinforcing their deep emotional and physical connection. In Chapter 35, Nathan and Melanie wake late on Sunday, enjoying a leisurely morning together in bed. Nathan admires Melanie's beauty and revels in their closeness, allowing her to stay wrapped in his arms. They discuss plans for later, including visiting his father for dinner, with Nathan affirming that they can go and she can enjoy time with his family. Melanie requests pancakes, which Nathan agrees to make, showing their comfortable intimacy and mutual care. As they prepare to leave, Melanie flops into the car, wincing slightly from the tenderness of the previous night's spanking and sexual encounters, which were both firsts for her. Nathan reassures her, confirming she enjoyed their passionate night and encouraging her to communicate if she feels pain. While driving to his father's house, Melanie straddles him in the car, expressing impatience with the wait, and Nathan begins teasing her, kissing her neck and keeping her occupied during the 40-minute ride. In Chapter 36, Nathan and Melanie spend the car ride to his father's house enjoying playful moments, including a Sunday crossword puzzle that Mel finds amusing. Upon arrival, they are greeted by Mason and Elijah, who are debating how to make mashed potatoes. The brothers involve Melanie as the tiebreaker for the Thanksgiving recipe, giving her two options: lumpy with skins or smooth with cream. She chooses the smooth, creamy version, much to Nathan's dismay, while Mason and Elijah celebrate her decision. Their father enters, noting the potatoes should be made as he prefers, with skins and butter as a nod to tradition, and warmly welcomes Melanie into the family. Nathan observes how naturally Mel fits with his family, contrasting her ease with his estranged wife, Amber. Melanie's quick integration highlights her growing importance in Nathan's life and the James family, while playful teasing and affectionate interactions underscore the couple's closeness and comfort with one another. In Chapter 37, Nathan prepares for a 3-day business trip to Chicago, discussing the schedule and the upcoming Christmas shelter fundraiser with Melanie. She worries about his absence, and he reassures her he will attend the event. Before leaving, they share an intimate moment in bed, during which Nathan expresses how much he will miss her and how irresistible he finds her. Melanie responds playfully and seductively, crawling to him and performing oral sex, bringing him to climax. Nathan emphasizes their deep personal connection, distinguishing their current marriage from the original business arrangement. He asserts that despite teasing her with the word whore, he will always defend her honor outside their private moments. They have passionate intercourse on his desk multiple times, heightening their emotional and physical bond before he must leave. They acknowledge the difficulty of being apart and the intensity of their feelings, cementing their closeness and mutual obsession. In Chapter 38, Nathan is in a hotel bar thinking about his wife, Mel, and resisting advances from a flirtatious bartender. Despite the temptation, he maintains that he is married. Later, he wakes in a hotel room hungover to find the same woman in bed with him, and he realizes he is engaged in sexual activity with her while drunk. Shocked and horrified at the possibility of having cheated on Mel, he struggles to recall the events of the previous night. The woman confirms they fooled around, but emphasizes he was too intoxicated to do anything else. Nathan feels immense guilt and panic, knowing he has violated his marriage and betrayed Mel's trust. He tries to piece together what happened, worries about how to tell her, and vomits from both hangover and stress. He is left emotionally devastated, terrified about the consequences for his relationship and the impact on Mel. In Chapter 39, Nathan rushes home after canceling his Chicago meeting and confides in his brother Elijah about waking up with a woman he cannot remember being with. Nathan believes he blacked out from drinking, but Elijah insists this makes no sense given Nathan's high tolerance for alcohol. Elijah suggests Nathan was drugged and orders a drug test to confirm it. Nathan worries about how to explain the situation to Melanie, especially if the test proves negative. The results show Nathan's system contains opioids and Rohypnol, confirming he was roofied. Relief and anger hit him at once as he realizes he did not knowingly cheat, but was sexually assaulted. Elijah offers to pursue legal action, but Nathan refuses for now. Overwhelmed, he decides the only thing that matters is telling Melanie the truth and hoping she believes him, and he leaves Elijah's office to go home immediately. In Chapter 40, Melanie eagerly waits for Nathan to return from Chicago, but immediately senses something is wrong when he arrives looking exhausted and distressed. Nathan tells her he woke up in a hotel bed with a bartender and was drugged, confirmed by a test showing Rohypnol and opioids in his system. He insists he has no memory of the incident and would never willingly cheat. Melanie believes him and realizes the attack was orchestrated by her brother, Bryce. She confesses that Bryce once planned a honey trap to trigger the cheating clause in Nathan's marriage contract. Although she claims she later begged Bryce to abandon the idea, she admits she knew about the plan and never warned Nathan. Nathan feels deeply betrayed by her lies and believes she used him for money regardless of her intentions. Enraged and heartbroken, he accuses her of setting him up and orders her to leave his home, ending their relationship. In Chapter 41, Nathan tells Elijah that Melanie knew about the scheme involving his drugging, which deepens his rage and sense of betrayal. Elijah offers to have Melanie, her brother Bryce, and the bartender arrested, but Nathan refuses and insists on learning exactly what happened in Chicago. Nathan returns to Chicago and confronts the bartender, Ariana Benjamin, at the hotel owned by the Moretti family. Under pressure, Ariana admits Bryce Edison hired and blackmailed her to drug Nathan and stage evidence of infidelity. She explains Bryce threatened to expose her activities to her dangerous employers if she refused. Ariana confirms Nathan was unconscious the entire time and that no sexual contact occurred. She only undressed them, took photos, and waited until morning. Nathan verifies Melanie was not directly involved in contacting Ariana. He turns Ariana over to the Morettis, who will ensure she never works in the city again. Nathan decides to personally deal with Bryce. In Chapter 42, Melanie reels from being thrown out by Nathan and struggles with guilt over her brother Bryce's actions. She attends the shelter fundraiser, but leaves early after lying about Nathan's absence, unable to cope with hearing his name or facing questions. Overwhelmed by grief, she stays at Tyler's apartment, confiding in him and blaming Bryce for ruining both her life and Nathan's. Tyler offers emotional support and promises to be there for her. Afterward, Melanie decides to confront Bryce directly. During a phone call, Bryce denies responsibility at first, then reacts angrily when she reveals she told Nathan about the honey trap plan. His threats and rage confirm his guilt. Melanie cuts him off completely, warning she will go to the police if he ever comes near her again. The chapter ends with Melanie emotionally shattered, estranged from her brother, and uncertain how to repair the damage done to her marriage and her life. In Chapter 43, Nathan tracks down Bryce after 2 days of searching and confronts him at an Italian restaurant. Bryce initially blames Melanie for the Chicago setup, claiming she planned everything and contacted the bartender. Nathan punches Bryce for lying and continues pressing him for details. Bryce insists Melanie intended to use the staged photos to trigger the morality clause and secure a large divorce payout. Nathan pretends to believe him to draw out the truth and learns Bryce alone controls the photos. Bryce's comments reveal that Melanie was supposed to play along but refused, confirming she did not know the Chicago plan went that far. Nathan realizes Bryce orchestrated the scheme to extort money from him and exploit his sister. Nathan threatens Bryce with total financial destruction by cutting off all future investors and ruining his company. Bryce panics as Nathan leaves, victorious but emotionally hollow, knowing Bryce is finished yet still feeling the loss of his marriage. In Chapter 44, Melanie struggles to cope 2 weeks after Nathan expelled her, using work as a distraction while remaining haunted by his pain and the sexual assault he endured. During a break, she receives multiple missed calls from her younger sister Ashley and learns that Bryce has cut off Ashley's college tuition, forcing her to leave school. Bryce claims there is no money left despite continuing his lavish lifestyle. Ashley reveals that $40,000 is owed for the current year, with another $80,000 needed for the next. Realizing Bryce is retaliating against her and using Ashley as leverage, Melanie decides she must intervene. With no realistic way to raise that amount quickly, Melanie concludes she must use the only resource available to her. Accepting that this choice may permanently end her marriage and devastate her emotionally, she resolves to secure the money herself to protect Ashley, vowing not to let her sister suffer for Bryce's actions. In Chapter 45, Nathan reflects on his late mother and realizes his most recent happiness was with Melanie before Chicago, when he almost told her he loved her. He receives a call from a jeweler, informing him that Melanie sold her engagement ring for $160,000. Furious, Nathan demands the ring back and assumes she sold it for selfish reasons. Seeking answers, he hires a private investigator to review Melanie's financial records. 4 days later, the records reveal Melanie had less than $2,000 in savings and used the ring money to pay nearly $40,000 toward Ashley's Harvard tuition and transferred the remaining funds directly to Ashley. Nathan realizes Melanie sold the ring to secure her sister's education, confirming Bryce's financial abuse. While this does not erase Melanie's lies, or their broken marriage, it complicates Nathan's anger and reawakens his feelings for the compassionate woman he fell in love with, leaving him conflicted about who Melanie truly is. In Chapter 46, Melanie is confronted by Bryce outside Tyler's apartment. Bryce assaults her, blaming her for losing investors and contracts after his scheme collapses. Melanie refuses to submit, condemns him for arranging Nathan's drugging, and hopes he is prosecuted. Bryce strikes her again and attempts to continue the attack until Elijah James intervenes, threatening him and forcing him to flee. Elijah checks on Melanie and helps gather her dropped groceries. He explains he came to deliver mail Nathan thought she might need and admits he wanted to confirm whether she knew what would happen in Chicago. Melanie insists she did not and expresses lasting guilt over Nathan being hurt. Elijah reveals that although Nathan was drugged, he was not sexually assaulted. The confirmation brings Melanie profound relief. Elijah confirms Nathan verified this himself, advises her to ice her injury, and leaves her alone, shaken but safe. In Chapter 47, Nathan learns from Elijah that Bryce physically assaulted Melanie outside Tyler's apartment. Enraged and shaken, Nathan confirms she was struck across the face and realizes Bryce has crossed an unforgivable line. Despite insisting Melanie lied and married him for money, Nathan reacts instinctively to protect her, acknowledging she is still his wife. Fueled by rage, Nathan goes to Edison Holdings and confronts Bryce in his office. He physically attacks and threatens him, making it clear there is no agreement between them. Nathan warns Bryce that he has the power to destroy him completely and will do so if Bryce ever harms Melanie again. To ensure the threat is understood, Nathan brutally stabs Bryce's hand with a letter opener, pinning it to the desk, and reminds him of his financial crimes. He orders Bryce to stay away from Melanie permanently. In Chapter 48, Nathan spends New Year's Eve with his father and brothers, highlighting the contrast between family stability and his personal turmoil. His empty penthouse and unresolved marriage weigh heavily on him. When asked about Melanie, Nathan insists he plans to divorce her, but admits he has not yet drawn up the papers. Pressed by his father and brothers, he struggles to explain why, revealing that he is not ready to make the separation final. Though he claims there will be no reconciliation, he admits he cannot easily let go of what he felt with Melanie or how deeply she affected him. His brothers challenge him to end the limbo, but ultimately support him regardless of his decision. Nathan realizes that delaying the inevitable is hurting them both and silently resolves to address the situation soon. For now, he chooses to remain with his family, clinging to familiarity as the new year approaches. In Chapter 49, Melanie is alone in her apartment when Nathan unexpectedly shows up. Tyler, her roommate, is out, leaving her alone with Nathan. He asks if Tyler is home, and upon learning he is not, Nathan closes the distance between them, expressing intense desire. He kisses her passionately and aggressively, and they engage in sexual activity, rekindling physical intimacy. Afterward, Nathan produces a folded brown envelope, avoiding her gaze, and hands it to her. Inside, it is revealed that Nathan is formally requesting a divorce. Melanie's immediate reaction is shock and heartbreak. She collapses to the floor, overwhelmed by the finality of his decision. The chapter ends with Melanie processing the emotional devastation of losing Nathan, realizing that their chance at a future together is completely over. Despite their physical connection, Nathan's divorce action extinguishes any remaining hope for reconciliation. In Chapter 50, Melanie confirms she is pregnant after taking a test, realizing her missed period and nausea were not coincidental. Though overwhelmed, she accepts that she wants the baby and believes she could raise the child alone with support from Tyler and Ashley. Her greatest fear is telling Nathan, worrying he will think the pregnancy is a manipulation or attempt to secure his money, despite knowing he is the man she would choose as the father. She decides she cannot keep the pregnancy from him and that he deserves to know. Melanie calls Tyler and tells him she is pregnant, explaining what happened the night Nathan came to her apartment and served her divorce papers. After talking it through, she forms a plan. She will sign the divorce papers to prove she has no financial agenda, then go to Nathan's office and tell him she is carrying his child. He can decide whether to be involved, but she will move forward regardless. In Chapter 51, Melanie goes to Nathan's office to tell him she is pregnant. She insists it is not a ploy or attempt to manipulate him, but that he has a right to know. Nathan initially scowls and asks if it concerns the divorce, but Melanie clarifies it is about their child. He questions how the pregnancy is possible since she was on birth control, and she explains she stopped taking it the night he came to Tyler's apartment, referencing the night he gave her a goodbye sexual encounter before serving divorce papers. Melanie makes it clear she does not want anything from him and will raise the child alone if necessary, though she won't prevent him from being involved. Nathan questions the child's paternity, which devastates Melanie. Hurt and frustrated, she leaves his office, asserting her independence and leaving Nathan to process the news on his own, ending the chapter with her exiting the office. In Chapter 52, Nathan confides in Mason and Elijah that Melanie is 6 weeks pregnant. He explains she told him she doesn't want anything from him but believes he has a right to know and can be part of the child's life. Elijah informs Nathan that Melanie signed the divorce papers that day and is walking away without contesting the prenup, keeping no money for herself or her family. Mason notes she will still receive child support, but only for the child. Nathan admits he asked Melanie if the baby is his, which caused her to leave. His brothers encourage him to accept the news and support him in celebrating the upcoming child. Later, Nathan attempts to call Melanie, but she sends him to voicemail. He then contacts Jesse, Melanie's trusted assistant, to obtain details about Melanie's doctor appointments, promising Jesse he will support Melanie and their child without being controlling, as he plans to be involved in the child's life. In Chapter 53, Melanie prepares to go to her scan alone, speaking briefly with Tyler, who encourages her not to go by herself. Outside, she encounters Nathan, who insists on accompanying her because he wants to be part of their child's life. Melanie initially refuses, still angry and hurt, but ultimately allows him to ride with her. During the car ride, Nathan reveals he knew about the scan despite her ignoring his calls, which she challenges as an invasion of privacy. He apologizes for his prior behavior, and they remain in tense silence. When Nathan asks if there might be a problem with the pregnancy, Melanie quietly reveals she has lost 2 babies in the past. Nathan expresses sympathy, but she rejects his pity. The chapter ends with them driving together to the scan, tense and silent, establishing Nathan's determination to be involved in their child's life and Melanie's lingering emotional barriers from past trauma. In Chapter 54, Nathan accompanies Melanie to her prenatal appointment. The obstetrician confirms she is 6 weeks and 3 days pregnant and schedules follow-up scans at 10 and 12 weeks due to her history of miscarriages. During the visit, Melanie reveals that her previous pregnancies were the result of her college professor impregnating her at age 19. The first miscarriage occurred at 6 weeks and the second at 16 weeks. After the second loss, her professor blamed her, leading her to end the relationship. Melanie explains that her family, including Bryce and her mother, spread a false narrative about her leaving college due to a drug problem to protect the family's reputation. Nathan listens and reassures her that she can have children and promises to provide the best medical care for her and the baby. They hold hands as he offers support, and Melanie allows a faint smile, showing some comfort and relief. In Chapter 55, Nathan goes to Melanie's veterinary clinic to see her during her lunch break, bringing food and ginger cookies to help with her pregnancy nausea. Despite initial hostility from the receptionist, Melanie is clearly pleased to see him. They share lunch privately, and Nathan shows quiet care and emotional consideration, signaling his intention to support her during the pregnancy. Melanie accepts his gesture and thanks him, reassured by his presence and willingness to be involved. Later, Nathan returns to his office and runs into Sapphire Huntington, an old friend visiting New York for an upcoming event. She asks to attend the event with Nathan, assuming Melanie will be present, but Nathan explains that Melanie will not be going. He avoids discussing their separation and agrees to go with Sapphire instead. The chapter reinforces Nathan's growing commitment to Melanie and the baby, while highlighting the unresolved tension surrounding their marriage and public status. In Chapter 56, Melanie speaks with Nathan over the phone, who has been calling her twice daily since her 6-week scan to check on her pregnancy and well-being. Their conversations have become lengthy and comforting for Melanie, as Tyler is away and Ashley is busy, leaving her isolated. Nathan playfully scolds her for eating poorly, suggesting he will have a chef deliver nutritious meals to support her pregnancy. The discussion becomes flirty, with hints of sexual tension, though Nathan's colleague interrupts to remind him of a charity event he must attend. Melanie realizes he is preparing to leave with another woman, leaving her frustrated and heartbroken. Shortly afterward, Melanie experiences sharp abdominal pain and notices blood, indicating a potential miscarriage. She panics, feeling helpless and devastated, despite having followed all precautions, including taking her vitamins. Overwhelmed by fear and anguish, she curls into a ball, sobbing and hoping her body does not betray her again. In Chapter 57, Nathan plans to visit Melanie after sensing her anger from the previous night's phone call. While thinking about her pregnancy and regretting not being physically present, he is interrupted by a call from Jasper Hospital informing him that Melanie has been admitted and has lost the baby. Nathan rushes to the hospital and learns that she miscarried overnight after arriving alone by cab and bleeding heavily. The doctor confirms there was nothing that could have been done and that Melanie is physically stable. Nathan finds Melanie withdrawn and devastated. He reassures her she is not to blame and insists on taking her home with him rather than to Tyler's apartment. At home, Melanie remains distant and emotionally shattered. Later, hearing her sobbing, Nathan joins her in bed and holds her as they grieve together, mourning both the baby and the future they lost. In Chapter 58, Melanie wakes in Nathan's bed, curled against him after their shared grief. She is physically sore and emotionally devastated, overwhelmed by the loss of the baby. Nathan comforts her, holding her close and reassuring her that she is not at fault for the miscarriage. Melanie voices her fear that she is broken, and Nathan tells her that loss does not define or diminish her, emphasizing that she did everything she could. He apologizes for not being there when it happened and promises to stay with her and support her. Despite knowing their relationship cannot continue as it once was, they lean on each other for comfort in the aftermath of the loss. Nathan insists she eat something and gently helps her out of bed, taking on a caretaking role as Melanie allows herself to accept his support. In Chapter 59, Melanie wakes in Nathan's penthouse the morning after the miscarriage. Nathan makes coffee, and they share a quiet, intimate moment filled with grief and tenderness. Melanie reflects on how kind and restrained Nathan was the night before, respecting boundaries while still offering comfort. Over coffee, they both openly mourn the baby and admit they had imagined a future as parents together. Nathan reassures Melanie that her grief is valid and that he does not blame her. He decides to work from home so he can stay with her, despite insisting he is not babysitting her. Melanie suggests she should leave to give him space, especially after learning the woman she heard on the phone was only an old friend, but Nathan firmly denies any romantic involvement. He asks what Melanie truly wants, admitting he does not want to be alone either. Melanie chooses to stay with him until Tyler returns in 2 weeks, and they agree to share that time together, supporting each other through their loss. In Chapter 60, Nathan reflects that Melanie will be staying with him for only 2 weeks and realizes how much her presence has brought him comfort and clarity since the miscarriage. While working from home, he notices she has been gone longer than expected and goes to check on her. Nathan finds Melanie curled on the shower floor, bleeding again and overwhelmed with grief and fear that something is wrong. He enters the shower, holds her, and comforts her as she sobs, explaining she thought the worst of the bleeding was over. Melanie apologizes, believing she ruined their relationship. Nathan reassures her that she did not ruin them, even as he struggles with his own helplessness and anger over her continued physical and emotional pain. In Chapter 61, Melanie calls her sister Ashley and tells her she lost the baby. Ashley is devastated and insists on coming home to support her, but Melanie initially refuses, worried about Ashley missing classes and lacking money. Melanie explains she is staying with Nathan and that he has been supportive. Nathan overhears the call and offers to fly Ashley to New York on his private jet and let her stay at the penthouse, ensuring she can return in time for school. Ashley eagerly accepts. After the call, Melanie thanks Nathan for helping her sister and clarifies that she is not alone. Emotional tension builds between them as Melanie struggles with her growing desire for him while knowing her stay is temporary. She resolves that once Tyler returns, she will leave Nathan's penthouse and remove him from her life, fearing that falling for him again would break her completely. In Chapter 62, Melanie anxiously waits for her sister Ashley to arrive, excited to see her after Christmas. Nathan observes, noting her excitement and the positive effect of Ashley's presence on Melanie following the loss of their baby. Ashley arrives and the sisters embrace emotionally, sharing time together before Nathan leaves them to catch up. Later, Nathan and Melanie discuss the day. Ashley wants to shop, and Nathan offers to take them out or provide money, which Melanie refuses, though she appreciates the gesture. Nathan respects her boundaries, and she invites him to join for window shopping, but he declines. Meanwhile, Nathan's colleague Jesse calls with updates on the investigation into Luke Edison's murder, prompting Nathan to go to his office to review the information. Later, Elijah arrives with coffee and pastries, discussing Melanie's recovery and her sister's visit. Nathan notes how Melanie has been happier and interacts warmly with Elijah, inviting him to dinner to discuss the Edison case. In Chapter 63, Melanie prepares dinner with Nathan, while her sister Ashley observes and asks about the evening plans. Nathan confirms dinner is at 7 and that Elijah will be joining. Ashley teases Nathan, prompting playful reactions from both him and Melanie. The presence of Ashley eases the tension between Melanie and Nathan, creating a more relaxed and normal atmosphere. Ashley flirts harmlessly with Nathan and inquires about his career, expressing fascination with his work involving high-profile criminals. Nathan answers her questions patiently, and Melanie reflects on his potential as a father, feeling a mix of longing and regret. When Elijah arrives, Ashley enthusiastically greets him. The three adults engage in conversation, and Ashley whispers to Melanie that she finds Elijah attractive, though Melanie reminds her he is married and older. The chapter closes with Melanie anticipating an interesting dinner with Nathan, Elijah, and Ashley, appreciating the brief sense of normalcy and family connection. In Chapter 64, Nathan reveals to Melanie and her sister Ashley the truth about their father's murder. He explains that the men shot by police, Wilson and Inglewood, were actually hired by Bryce to rob their house, and their father, Luke, was killed when he confronted them. Bryce had owed money to dangerous individuals and orchestrated the crime, then contacted NYPD Officer O'Grady to cover up his involvement. O'Grady killed Wilson and Inglewood under the guise of self-defense. Nathan confirms this information through phone records obtained by a hacker. There is insufficient evidence to prosecute Bryce because the key players are dead or unavailable. Mel realizes Bryce manipulated her into believing her father's death was her fault, which explains her lifelong compliance with his schemes. She decides to cut all ties with Bryce and her mother, requesting to have her name removed from Edison Holdings. Nathan supports her decision, promising to make it happen while respecting her wish to avoid harming anyone. In Chapter 65, Nathan reflects on Melanie's presence in his penthouse in the few days they have left before Tyler returns, noting how her lingering scent, belongings, and habits make the space feel alive and intimate. He acknowledges the unresolved tension between them and the divorce papers waiting in his office, realizing he must decide what he wants in the next 3 days. While observing her asleep, he receives a call from Drake confirming all the legal paperwork regarding Edison Holdings is drafted and ready, allowing Nathan the option to proceed if necessary. Later, Nathan confronts Melanie's mother, Miranda, at her home to determine whether Melanie knew anything about Bryce's plans to set him up. Miranda confirms that Melanie had no knowledge of the extent of Bryce's scheme, including the drugging plot, and had attempted to stop Bryce after marriage. Nathan realizes Melanie had been truthful all along, and he affirms to Miranda that he would have done anything for Melanie, including supporting her and her family financially. In Chapter 66, Nathan returns home to find Melanie on the sofa. He suggests dinner at her favorite steakhouse, but she prefers takeout and an old movie on the couch, wanting a quiet night together. While preparing for their evening, Tyler unexpectedly returns to New York early, greeting Melanie warmly. Nathan, recognizing her attachment to Tyler and the complicated emotions, forces himself to step back, allowing them to interact while suppressing his frustration. Tyler praises Nathan for valuing Melanie, then leaves, taking the pizza with him. Left alone with Melanie, Nathan closes the distance between them, asking her to stay with him instead of going home with Tyler. They confess their love for each other, and Nathan asserts that he cannot live without her. Overcome with desire and reconnection, they engage in passionate, intimate lovemaking, reaffirming their physical and emotional bond. Afterwards, they share takeout pizza and watch her chosen movie, with Melanie falling asleep against him. In Chapter 67, Melanie wakes alone and fears Nathan has left, but he returns with breakfast in bed, reassuring her that the night before was real and meaningful. He brings pancakes, fruit, and coffee, showing care and commitment. Nathan then produces Melanie's original wedding ring, explaining he recovered it after learning she sold it to support her family. He confirms he now believes her innocence regarding what happened in Chicago. Nathan reveals he always hoped to give the ring back to her and asks her to be his wife again. Melanie admits she never stopped considering herself his wife and accepts. He places the ring back on her finger, symbolizing their reconciliation. Their conversation is playful and affectionate, showing renewed intimacy and comfort between them. The chapter ends with them fully reconnecting emotionally and physically, reaffirming their marriage and choosing to move forward together. In Chapter 68, Nathan receives an unexpected visit from his brother Drake, who has brought cappuccinos and waffles, despite being supposed to be in Chicago. Drake apologizes for not being present during recent events and expresses sympathy to Nathan and Mel over the loss of their baby. Nathan informs Mel of Drake's arrival, and she greets him warmly, wearing one of Nathan's shirts. The three share breakfast, and Drake offers comfort and support to Mel. Afterward, they plan to attend dinner at their father's house. At the family gathering, Nathan observes how Mel bonds with his father and brothers, particularly Maddox, who returns home after 4 years. Maddox gifts Mel a shaman-blessed fertility carving. The day strengthens the connection between Mel and Nathan, as well as Mel's integration into his family. Later, Nathan notices his father alone outside and joins him, reflecting on the family reunion, the return of Maddox, and the happiness of seeing Mel accepted and cherished by his family. In Chapter 68, Nathan receives an unexpected visit from his brother Drake, who has brought cappuccinos and waffles, despite being supposed to be in Chicago. Drake apologizes for not being present during recent events and expresses sympathy to Nathan and Mel over the loss of their baby. Nathan informs Mel of Drake's arrival, and she greets him warmly, wearing one of Nathan's shirts. The three share breakfast, and Drake offers comfort and support to Mel. Afterward, they plan to attend dinner at their father's house. At the family gathering, Nathan observes how Mel bonds with his father and brothers, particularly Maddox, who returns home after 4 years. Maddox gifts Mel a shaman-blessed fertility carving. The day strengthens the connection between Mel and Nathan, as well as Mel's integration into his family. Later, Nathan notices his father alone outside and joins him, reflecting on the family reunion, the return of Maddox, and the happiness of seeing Mel accepted and cherished by his family. In Chapter 70, set 10 months later on New Year's Eve, Nathan reflects on his changed life as fireworks light the New York City skyline. He is no longer celebrating with his old family traditions because he now has a new family with Melanie. She is heavily pregnant, past her due date, and asleep in bed with her hand resting protectively on her belly. Nathan joins her, and they share a quiet, intimate moment together while waiting for the new year to arrive. Melanie apologizes for falling asleep, but Nathan reassures her that she is exactly where he wants to be. Their bond is strong and loving, and they reaffirm their commitment to each other. As the new year arrives, they make love, choosing intimacy over watching the ball drop. Afterward, they lie together, content and peaceful, embracing the life they've built and the child they are about to welcome. Epilogue, set 1 year later on New Year's Eve, Melanie reflects on their life together at the James family's annual New Year's party. Nathan and Melanie are married, deeply happy, and raising their young son, whom Nathan briefly settles before returning to Melanie. Tyler and Ashley are now fully part of the extended family. Nathan leads Melanie away from the party to continue their private New Year's tradition of being together at midnight. During their intimate moment, Melanie reveals she avoided champagne because she is pregnant again. Nathan immediately understands and realizes they are expecting another child. He is overwhelmed with joy and reaffirms that Melanie and their children are the center of his life and happiness. Melanie reassures him that they have built a full life together and can have everything they want. The chapter closes with both of them content, united, and looking forward to their growing family and future.